I'd like to start off by saying good evening, and thank you for having me and allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight at the Las Vegas Conservative Town Hall Group. My name is John Kovacs, and as you may or may not be aware, I'm running for Congress in Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. There are other candidates in this race as well, and I am hopeful that tonight I will help distinguish my candidacy from theirs. For the record, I will be formally filing my candidacy tomorrow. And I'll be making that announcement tomorrow afternoon as well. So let's get started. I wanted to give you the most relevant and original speech as possible, and since I'm speaking to the Las Vegas Conservative Town Hall Group, I decided to start with the construction of the term conservatism, as it is used in today's political vernacular. The word conservatism is simply defined as political doctrine that emphasizes the value of traditional institutions and practices. That said, the term originates back to 1789 in reaction to the upheaval of the French Revolution, after which the term conservatism began to develop a distinct attitude and mission. It has since evolved, and I will spare you the history of the 233 years since, but today it has come to be aligned with the politics of the former great President Ronald Reagan, and more recently the politics of the former President Donald J. Trump. With many of the candidates in the Republican primary, CD3, claiming to be the most conservative, it almost seems cartoonish for me to get up here before you tonight and espouse the exact same thing. As I was thinking to myself earlier, I'm like, I'm the most conservative. No, I am. No, I am. No, I am. So the question then pertaining to me is, how do I present to you not only that I am the most qualified candidate running in CD3, but also as one who holds near and dear to himself the same conservative values and principles as all of you. My approach to this is as follows. To actually know a person, where a person is going, you have to know where he has been. I was raised by two old-fashioned traditional parents whose parental roots reach back to the early 1900s. One of Italian ancestry, whose mother was born here, and the other, my father, who fled Hungary in 1956 at the age of 21 as a result of the Hungarian Revolution against the Soviet Union. Eerily similar to the scene that we are witnessing take place right now between Russia and Ukraine. I was raised as a Catholic who went to church on Sundays and then to the cemetery promptly thereafter, every weekend. I was an excellent student in grade school, and by middle school and high school, I had achieved exemplary academic record, along with numerous athletic awards. My adherence to traditional principles and values had already taken hold when I enrolled in the Air Force Junior ROTC, a 3-year course in my freshman year of high school. My choice to attend the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina, arguably the most conservative college in the U.S., and steeped in traditional values, was a perfect fit for someone like me who looked at the world through a very similar lens. My time at the Citadel cemented my embrace and commitment to conservative doctrines and principles and traditional values that after 35 years have never wavered. Conservatism is innate to who I am, who I have become, to my being, my character, and will be so for the rest of my life. I want to underscore this. My unparalleled educational background, commencing with my first day at school and culminating by graduating from college as a civil engineer with an aptitude for advanced math, prepared me for my foray into the world. And I'm going to stop here to recognize what Erica has been saying, because without that, you can't on a dime decide, hey, I'm going to run for Congress, hey, I'm going to start a business, hey, I'm going to do something, I'm going to do this, or hey, I know how to do that. Or, like Michelle says, hey, I'm not going to get pushed around by the IRS because you know what, I know more than they do. So you need an education for that. And also, English, again, I can't underscore it. I've come to really, really appreciate it and wish I took better English, more English when I was in school, because you do not realize how important it is when you want to succeed in the world, especially in this country. And by the way, English is, and you'll see where I've been, English is spoken pretty much all over the place. Moving on, I began my professional career in 1988 working on the 72nd floor of One World Trade Center of the doomed Twin Towers in New York City, which would be the site of 2 terror attacks, one in 1993 and then again on September 11th of 2001. At the age of 24, I was elected and served on the Board of Education of Piscataway, New Jersey, the town where I was raised, where my platform was reading, writing, and arithmetic. Pretty much the same thing we hear today. However, my real passion by that time had become my career, and I was committed to becoming a self-employed, successful businessman in my chosen field, construction. Along the way, I developed and cultivated interests, I call them hobbies, and I'm always working, so in the area, in related disciplines of accounting, tax code, and counterintuitively, the law, keeping it in sync with the federal and state laws and agency codes, all of which I realized and had to rely upon to sustain my business over the years. I would draw on all these once again in 2016 when I opened up a construction company here in Las Vegas and had to take licensing exams that questioned me on the topics of none other than accounting, taxes, and the law, in addition to construction practices. To date, I've been in business for 32, going on 33 years, and I have never stopped educating myself in the process. In 2019, my company was recognized as one of the top 12 in the country in the $8 to $15 million per category by an industry magazine sponsored by Caterpillar Equipment. One of the featured projects was a project that we had done in front of the Nugget Hotel in Sparks, Nevada, actually. In that article, I was quoted as saying, most people my age, I'm 55 years old, most people my age are looking to retire. But not me. I'm on a 25-year plan. I'm going to be doing this for the next 25 years. Well, I'm still doing that. However, 2020 changed all that just a little bit. Under dubious circumstances, Joe Biden was swept into office, and on the day after his inauguration, repealed the Keystone XL pipeline, in addition to other executive orders, essentially undoing all the hard-fought progress made under President Trump. It was on that day I made up my mind and committed to doing something substantial within my power to change the course of this country. I had already donated to the Trump campaign and the senatorial campaigns in Georgia. I had to become more involved and use the skills I honed to navigate my company over the years to now help navigate the country. I had to run for Congress. This president and the Democrat-controlled Congress have consistently failed the American people on everything from illegal immigration on the border to failed energy policy, the blundered pullout of Afghanistan, and his perceived weakness and lack of mental acuity all set the stage for an emboldened Russia to invade its neighbor, Ukraine. In that arena, we all see the administration, including Vice President Kamala Harris, in an interview inquiring as to whether she had ever visited the border, admitting that she had never visited Europe either. Now, she finds herself woefully unprepared as the point person to Europe. Our congressional caucus is no better prepared, and it is obviously evident. Conversely, I bring a wealth of experience in this new European theater to the table, as over the last 5 to 7 years, my travels have taken me to Russia, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Hungary, Romania, France, Switzerland, Germany, the UK, and more recently the UAE, who, by the way, are not taking Joe Biden's calls for additional oil output. Simply put, our president and congressional leaders are making policy in areas of the world and with people of the world whom they know nothing about. And it is evidenced by their unending failures and mismanagement on the world stage. Domestically, they are no better equipped, as they have failed almost intentionally on policies involving jobs, inflation, rising gas prices, and most near and dear to my heart, locally, our water scarcity issue. I'm gonna stop here. When we turn on the TV and you listen to CNN and MSNBC for the last several months, what have we been hearing? January 6th, never forget January 6th, right? Nonsense. The date we should be keeping in mind is January the 7th, because on that day, this year, our water allocation was reduced by 7.3%. And next year, if things don't change, it's 8.3%. I want to remind everybody that the people who built the Hoover Dam did so in 1935 without the use of any of the high-tech, big, huge, heavy equipment that we have at our disposal today. And population at that time was much less than it is today. And quite frankly, I think they'd be turning over in their graves for a peak here in 2022. We don't have an answer or a way to solve our problem. It's not climate change, it's engineering. And I've spoken about it on our platform, on our website. We have 3 prongs. We talk about management, reclamation, and recharge. And we talk about it at length on there, and what our plan is to kind of actually recharge and re-energize. Because quite frankly, if things don't change, we're going to be living on a rock. All that beautiful, I live in Seven Hills, some people live in Summerlin, all that beautiful landscape is all going to be gone. 2027, all the median, all the grass medians, gone if nothing happens. Really something we should pay attention to, or we have to really, because it affects our quality of life and our standard of living. Enough said there. As I obviously don't have enough time to get into detail on every issue, as always I come prepared. We have developed an outstanding website, kovacsforcongress.com. On it, in addition to positions on the issues, you will find an election integrity center. No other campaign in the state, congressional or otherwise, has one. And it answers the apprehension that a lot of our voters have, because it centers around what we as Republican voters can do to make sure that our votes count and that we are not again shortchanged. Our campaign also has a YouTube channel, John Kovacs for Congress. There I speak at length on policies categorized as such, like energy independence, China, crime, election integrity, Second Amendment, abortion, border security, education, healthcare, term limits, and lastly, fentanyl and opioid abuse. There are 77 videos in all, and we expect to have 100 by May. My Facebook page, which includes topics on numerous issues of the day and an in-depth video on our water crisis. I urge all of you to follow us on Facebook to keep up with the latest developments. We have a bi-monthly newsletter which is published, and next week will be featured on our Facebook page as well as our website. Lastly, if you're listeners to KMZQ, AM 670, you will hear me regularly advertise between noon and 6 p.m. daily. between the Kevin Wall and Wayne Allen Root programs. I interview with Kevin bi-weekly and Wayne bi-monthly. Be sure to tune in because I have a lot of good things to say regarding policy on that. Thus, my campaign, so I'm going to leave you with this. My campaign for Congress is aimed at having our district, CD3, represented by a world-class, highly educated, and accomplished business leader who will lead others in Congress and make the right things happen for the betterment of my constituents and the country at large. For that, I commit myself and sacrifice time with my family, attention from my business, and my own financial resources for the opportunity to serve you and save this great nation of ours. People like George Clooney, when asked about public service, respond by saying, "No thanks, I want a nice life." If you have paid any attention to what I've been saying here tonight regarding my history and background, you know that these are words I cannot bring myself to utter. I am running for Congress, and I'm doing it for you. Thank you guys very much for having me.
Yes, back there. Yes, ma'am.
I see the information that you provided about the water shortage, and I know that water is critical to everyone. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts and ideas are on how you would be able to get more water for us from the Colorado River Compact that's been in effect for over 100 years and along the river that's
Good question.
strong group.
So I kind of thought a little bit outside the box, because a couple of years ago, a friend of mine is another attorney in town, and I was saying to the guy, I'm like, did you ever look at what's going on at the Hoover Dam? I mean, every time I go there, water keeps going down and down and down. And I said, you know what, you guys, he's a tax attorney. I'm like, you know what you guys really should get into? Water compact thing. And I said, because you're going to be litigating this, you can litigate this for the rest of your life because everybody's going to be fighting over it. So to that end, as a civil engineer, and like I said, I referenced the building of the Hoover Dam in the 1930s. My approach to this is you can keep fighting over a pie, but it's a never shrinking pie. My answer to you is this: we live in a desert. It's supposed to rain here. This is the climate, and when you look around what's going on around us in parts of the southeast, they have more water than what they know what to do with, and they get it on a regular basis. We build in different parts of the country, maybe not so much here, but we build reservoirs, we build containment fields and ditches to move that water. And I mean, we have pipelines that move enough fuel from Texas to the East Coast to fuel pretty much coming all across the East Coast. We have the ability to move a lot of that water to the lower Colorado River Basin, which is, quite frankly, the New Mexico, Arizona, who takes a big chunk of our water, and maybe the lower part of Southern California. California, when they would talk about desalination, they could do that for some of their drinking water needs. They can't do it for their agricultural needs. You could recharge with a lot of that rainwater that we do get in the Mississippi Delta and things like that. You can recharge the Texas aquifer as well. And there in the upper Colorado River Basin, we have a lot more of that water for us to use for our needs. All right. I mean, there's no magic wand. Nobody has a magic bullet. And but that is pretty much how we have to work and do that. I mean, along with reclamation, as well as water management. I mean, you do see you bring a lot of people coming in. You have to make sure you have enough resources naturally to sustain that growth. And without that, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. So, to answer your question, my plan is yes. And we have the infrastructure plan, right? They talked about, they passed. None of that talked about water bringing into this area. They talked about the Build Back Better plan, didn't get passed. Trillions of dollars, none of that dealt with bringing water here, by the way. Up until now, we never thought about a public works project on that scale, because prior to COVID-19, we all thought of things in terms of billions of dollars. Well, COVID-19, now we talk in terms of trillions of dollars. So as a public works project for the betterment of what 50 million people that live over here, on the west, that are affected by this serious job situation that we have, it's certainly, that is a sound investment, and one that will continue to pay year after year after year. So I hope I answered your question on that.
Okay, let's do a question back there.
Hey, John, I love your speech, and your resume, your background sounds wonderful. I wanted to see if you could expand on something you talked about. You talked about integrity. I think you were referring to voter, or actually
Election integrity.
But another aspect, you and I and Noah are the only federal candidates in this room today. Can you talk about candidate integrity and how it relates to doing a responsible job in Washington, D.C., how if you run your campaign a certain way, if you do some things that are kind of on the edge, how that might affect you in public office when you're actually in Washington, D.C., representing everybody back in Nevada? Candidate integrity.
I'm going to try to read between the lines on that one. Candidate, as far as I see it, people are going to vote for the candidate based on, and that's why I said, Facebook, YouTube channel, 77 videos, website, Facebook page. We're trying to be an open book. I kind of, maybe I went a little overboard with the bio, starting back from the day I was born practically. But I wanted to give you a background on who I am, and we have a campaign office. You can go into the campaign, you can talk to Zach, who's there every day, and you can see how we're running our campaign. I can only talk for myself. I can't speak for anybody else. How we run our campaign, because that's what I want others to do when they look at candidates that they're comparing for the same office. We called out a particular candidate who wants to stand with women, et cetera, who's taking money from a guy, quite frankly, who may have abused women in his career. So we pointed that out. And to answer your question, yes, people who do push the envelope in such a manner in a candidacy will certainly push the envelope, or in the same way as a congressional, in my case, as a congressional person.
One more question. One last chance. All right.
Going.
John will be here after the meeting. Thank you, John.
No problem. Thank you.